Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmitz_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmitz.
Great to have you in on Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Another day with Elijah Herbal before you pack up. Are you going to Colorado?
Yeah, visiting some family again.
Be good, man.
Yeah.
So you already got your workout in. You got a move done this morning.
Yes, I did. My brother got a call
You
from
ever
his
see the
landlord.
Seinfeld episode?
Where they're moving up the stairs?
Well, just the fact that Keith Hernandez asked Jerry to help him move, and they weren't really that tight.
Yes.
Okay.
Luckily, though, I showed up this morning. My brother already had most of his stuff in boxes, so that made things nice and easy. Just haul it outside.
That works. Good for you.
I was just the muscle.
Good. Okay, so you are the muscle. Nebraska is going back to SEC country for another defensive back. Malik Williams is in. Another commitment in as many days in Coach Fisher's secondary. Pretty talented kid out of Buford, Georgia. Teammate of Gabe Ervin and a friend of Miles Farmer. So connections, but Nebraska doing their thing. Really good film as I watch another talent out of SEC land. We'll talk with Malik Williams in 30 minutes. He'll join us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Mitch Sherman is about 15 minutes away, and we'll spend some time here reacting to some of Coach Chinander's thoughts as he spent time with the Husker Network, as he kind of just laid things out here. Defensively, who's pushing for time potentially, the depth factor that is very real for Nebraska to get caught up in the Big Ten. They need more bodies. They need strong bodies. They need options. And they need some guys to kind of break through and star on all levels. I don't know about you, Elijah. You've got a number of dudes back with some talent that needs to translate to the field in the secondary. You got some older guys and some young guys you're excited about. You have the linebacker spot that you want to see probably a little higher level play, a linebacker this year than you did last year. And then defensively, you have three guys off to the NFL, and yet Nebraska's rush defense has been made fun of a lot. It just has been. That's not all on the Davis twins or Darian Daniels. I mean, you have the front seven work together, right, to stop somebody from cranking out 5 point whatever it was. Okay, so it's yin and yang right there. But as a Nebraska fan, when we get football kicked back off, you're going to feel okay with some of the options. And if somebody isn't getting it done, or somebody's already played X number of snaps against the battering ram known as Wisconsin or Iowa or Minnesota, guess what? Get some fresh bodies in. What's that gap going to be like in talent? Is there drop-off? Are you sending a complete second wave? Are you sending in the cavalry with minimal drop-off? That's the hope if you're a Nebraska fan. What are you watching on BTN? You're watching old Nebraska games. What are you watching on Fox Sports? What are you watching on ESPN? You're watching a plethora of old college football games, and they had the 86 Fiesta Bowl on, okay? And I hated how that game ended because Nebraska had it, and then they just fumbled it away and didn't work out well for Nebraska. They got beat by Harbaugh in Michigan when he was playing quarterback. And you got guys like Jim Scow and Danny Noonan that are just beasts. And guess who hadn't seen the field yet, but they were going to be top 5 picks, top 6 picks. You had guys waiting in the wings like a Broderick Thomas or a Neil Smith.
I mean, Steve Taylor came in and turned the course of that game.
He did, because Steve Taylor kicked ass and took names. He was a great quarterback.
That was his freshman season, I believe?
Yeah, he came in and Nebraska rallied, and unfortunately too many fumbles in the third quarter not to go back in the DeLorean too far. But that just speaks to the depth, where you're just, at some point, if you're Nebraska and you want to get back into being mentioned in the names of college football programs that are good and respected. You have tradition right now, and yes, you have some talent, and you got a good head coach. You really do. But as Jim Delaney said, it's time for Nebraska to start getting back to being Nebraska. It's going to be because you'll have a good starting front seven, but you're going to have backups that come in, and when their time comes, they're going to be great players in their own right when they get a chance to win that position. So it'll be exciting to see where the defense can go, and it's going to be a test of manhood. Let's just call it like it is if you're going to get 10 Big Ten games. It's going to be physical. It's going to be a snot knocker. Good. That's like one of the selling points as to why we talked ourselves into the Big Ten as sports fans, right? Well, okay, you're getting rid of the Big 12. Now you go to the Big Ten. It's Paul Bunyan time, man. Roll your sleeves up, grow a beard, and let's throw some hands. You need to be able to punch back. And Nebraska, for a long time, and this isn't this current coaching staff's fault, but previous staff that was here, man, not all of them, but some of them, Nebraska was soft. Nebraska was soft, and the league knew it. League circled Nebraska's name.
I mean, the fans knew it.
Yeah, as a Nebraska fan, man, you've been a college student for 3 years. Right? You know what 17 felt like if you're a Nebraska fan, where people just put you out like a Marlboro. They just put you out on the lines of scrimmage. It's no good.
It was demoralizing.
It's got to get better. And you get some talent in here and some depth, it will get better for Nebraska. How soon can guys get up to speed? And you've got some upperclassmen in that front three. And, of course, that back four that have been here. And let's be straight. I mean, Cam Taylor-Britt's kind of your money man. He's fantastic. He's versatile. He's physical, and he can tackle. Deontay Williams is a good ball player, really good ball player. And he finds ways to turn the football over when he's on the field and healthy. That sucked getting him knocked out last year. So let's start off here with Coach Chinander, his comments again with the network last night. And let's hit on the front three, because that is your cornerstone. That's your first level. That's your first wave of defense against the run and helping get after the quarterback, at least collapsing things in this 3-4 defense that if you're built with some playmakers off the edge, you saw how good it can be in Central Florida with a good secondary, a missile like Shaq off the edge, and some guys that can occupy space and get off blocks up the middle. Here's Coach Chinander.
And up front, cautiously optimistic that those guys can play at the level that the Twins and Darien played at last year, and maybe even more. We have a really good young group, and supplemented that with some junior college guys, and I'm really excited about that. I think we have 7 or 8 guys that can rotate right now. There's some length up front. There's some size up front, so I think we're finally getting to where we need to be to compete in the Big Ten, with that size up front. But I really like the attitude of those guys. I talked to them a little bit on the phone and on text and all in Zoom. I really like where they're at, and I think that they really understand what we want to get done, and all those young bodies are ready to compete in this league.
So 8 to 9 guys, and you have 3 spots to occupy. If we're talking hockey, that's 3 line changes, ideally. But nice things are expected from Ty Robinson. Nebraska didn't rip off the Band-Aid on a gunshot wound up front last year. What'd they do? They redshirted Ty Robinson. It would have been real easy to put Robinson and let him play off the end and also on the interior. They didn't force things with Keem Green either. They also went shopping with Feldarius, got a JUCO kid that can come in on the interior. And by the way, you still have a guy that can be a difference maker for Nebraska in Damian Daniels as he gets into better shape. Remember the Iowa game in 2018? I do. What happened when Damian got in? Iowa quit running the football. Damian Daniels is a good football player when he can give you several snaps, right? And being that big and asking to occupy that nose spot in a 3-4 for the love of God, where you got 2 or 3 other fat guys coming at you. No fun, man, unless you're just crazily sick in the head at that interior spot, and it's a special dude to play nose.
First off, you're calling the offensive line a couple of fat dudes coming at you? Is that what you're saying here?
A little bit. You're not fat anymore, nor are you on the offensive line anymore. So don't be offended. Not all linemen are fat, but there are some guys who don't get cold in the wintertime.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
But back to Damian, I mean, this is a kid that's already graduated from college. Mm-hmm. He's got his bachelor's degree. He's going back. I mean, he could theoretically get his master's degree before his 5 years on the football team are up. But it's a smart kid who has experience now.
He's talented.
Very talented. It appears he's getting into better shape. He's got to see his brother play last year. He's now an NFL player, got to play with him. I'm excited. I'm high on Damian Daniels coming into this year.
Well, and is it Snacks, the nickname?
Yeah.
Is that out of love, or is that nickname out of motivation?
Yeah, is that you eat too many snacks, so we're going to call you Snacks until you stop?
Or that you just feast on offensive interiors?
I'm going to hope for number 2.
Well, yeah. We'll have to ask him that at some point. More from Coach Chinander when it comes to that front 3 competition. Here is Nebraska's defensive coordinator.
There's a ton of guys competing for spots, guys that have been here, the older guys so far as, Ben Stille, Damian Daniels, Deontay Thomas. You have a lot of guys. Then you have this group of redshirt and or freshmen that have come in, the Ty Robinsons, the Tate Wildemans, Casey Rogers, Mosai Newsomes. And then you're talking about some junior college guys. Keem Green was here in redshirt last year, Jordan Riley and Feldarius Payne. So, I mean, you have a really good group of guys up there that's going to be hard to get on the field. It's going to be interesting once we start camp and watch those guys compete.
Let's talk inside linebackers, okay? Because I think a lot of Nebraska fans are excited about where the inside spot can go. Colin Miller's been here for a long time. Colin Miller's a freak athlete. And Colin Miller got on the field early because of his athleticism, and he was able to come in and get off the edge. He's had to transition inside. He's worked hard to do so. He's shown good leadership per Coach Chinander this offseason. But this is urgency time for that inside group. It just is, where you have a Will Honus that blessing in disguise, got hurt, able to redshirt. And Honus is a guy that screams Big Ten football, a guy that Iowa and Wisconsin wanted, Nebraska got. And Honus is a dude that can stop the run. He's there to roll his sleeves up, and he's also athletic. So you have him and Miller, and then you have a couple of guys that people are excited to see, but you haven't really seen him. You saw a little bit of Reimer, okay? As athletic as he is, makes some plays late in the year. There's excitement for him. And then Henrich out of Burke. Really high-level kid, smart football player. Can you see a healthy Heinrich this season? And do they supplant guys that have been in the league been in Nebraska's defense for a long time? I mean, Miller's started a lot of games. Honus, when healthy, has seen a lot of snaps. Do they get supplanted? Can they get beat out? Yes is the answer. Will they? It's a nice problem to have, where you got guys that are coming up from behind. You see them in the rear view, and maybe they win the job. Worst case, you can absolutely turn to them and say, okay, X and Y aren't getting it done. Let's just say hypothetically, go in and do your thing. Or you match up better against this offense than so-and-so does. So you have some options, but here's Coach Chinander on that inside linebacker spot.
Really like, obviously, where Will and Colin have elevated their game to. Those are both guys that are either Will was just started with us from junior college, and Colin Miller was kind of playing a different position when we first got here. But those guys have really developed themselves over the last couple of years. Just their knowledge in football, as well as their body and their leadership potential. So I like where they're at in that first group of inside linebackers.
Can we squeeze in the competition? Let's squeeze in the competition. Coach Chinander expands a little bit on just that group of inside backers, and you have 2 spots for a lot of guys.
that being said, those guys have a lot of work cut out for themselves to not only get that first spot, but keep that first spot. You have guys like Nick Henrich and Luke Reimer right on their tails, and then there's a host of other guys competing at those jobs too. But I think that we're going to be able to be 5 or 6 deep there. You know, and you got some young guys coming in, Keyshawn Green and Ba. There's a good depth at inside backer too, and I think we'll be able to rotate those guys a little bit.
So don't forget about Mauga Clements. All right. I mean, they're high on Green, and I know he's supposed to be a fantastic inside backer, lots of speed, can really fly downhill. There's not been a lot of inside linebackers in Nebraska football that come in and just kill it. I mean, Levante David, yes, but JUCO, Barrett Ruud for sure. Barrett was phenomenal. But there's a year of acclimation, not only to the college level, but your playbook. Got to get bigger, stronger, faster. But hey, Green could be one of those freak athletes. I mean, he's getting mentioned because he's high profile, but he's getting mentioned because he may have some of the traits that can make a difference on that interior for Nebraska, stopping the run and maybe getting after the quarterback and dropping into coverage. Mitch Sherman's coming up, and a new commit for Nebraska in the secondary. Malik Williams is 15 minutes away. Great to be with you on a Tuesday. Hail Varsity, we're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Mitch Sherman with us from The Athletic, at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. Mitch, know you got a big game tonight. Thanks for jumping on ahead of heading to the dugout, man. How you doing?
I'm good, Chris. We have a game. They're all big. You know, it's the next game. I don't know. I'm losing count at this point, but I'm glad the season is being played. So I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. Excited to talk some football with you. As want to spend a few minutes on the Blackshirt defense, the Nebraska defensive side of the ball, and a couple 3 young names that have been bantied about, and you got Reimer at inside backer and Henrich, the kid out of Burke, and you have Miles Farmer and Noah Pulligates. That's 2 levels of young guys, and then, of course, Ty Robinson on the defensive line. You know, from what you're hearing with the offseason workouts and just from a depth standpoint, if we get football, and if it is just Big Ten football, which is what it looks like, how better positioned do you think Nebraska will be in 2020 against an all Big Ten schedule with their depth? Are they going to be able to hold up? What do you think they could hold up better than in past seasons?
Yeah, that depth on the defensive side and offensively, where Nebraska is improved with its depth, is a huge factor if you're talking about only Big Ten opponents. You know, even if it's 9 games, 10 games, 8 games, whatever, you know, you need to have depth going week in and week out against the Big Ten, kind of like you do going through a conference season. The difference this year, those games are all going to mean a little bit more because there are no non-conference games when you put together your final record. And, you know, the names that you mentioned, the guys that you mentioned on the defensive side and reviewing what Eric Chinander had to say yesterday, I think are all key names. They're all second-year players. They all redshirted a year ago with the exception of Luke Reimer, the only walk-on of the group. So, yeah, all 3 levels of the defense. Ty Robinson is a guy, one of the few on that defensive front 3 who can swing between defensive end and the nose tackle position. So he's a super valuable guy, and you can see what he's doing in the weight room with the videos that Zach Duval has been posting this week. You know, just kind of verifies, validates some of the thoughts about Ty Robinson that people have had since he's come into this program, that he's going to be a big-time player, going to be a difference maker on the defensive line out of the state of Arizona. And then Nick Henrich, you know, people forget about him because he had the injury in his first spring, but he was on target. I've probably talked about this before. He was on target to be probably a guy like Reimer who played last year, and I would say would have played more than Reimer and been a real factor on the defense, more than just special teams where Reimer excelled. in his true freshman year if he hadn't had the shoulder surgery in the spring leading up to that. Just a refined player, the number one prospect from the state of Nebraska in that 19 class. So both of those guys, I think, have a chance to really do something this year. And don't forget, Garrett Snodgrass is in that group too as an inside backer. He, was the scout team player of the year for the Huskers last year on the defensive side. The guys in the secondary that you mentioned are among a whole group of second-year players who I think can impact this defense. This is definitely the strongest, deepest area, not just of the defense, but the entire team in what Travis Fisher has on the back end of the D.
Is there a guy that could be a star, or do you need a star in that secondary?
Yeah, I think there are some young guys who can be stars. I think they like Miles Farmer to eventually become that guy. I think this year, when you start to mix in the older guys, I think Deontay Williams, with the way that he's coming back off of a shoulder injury, can be a star this year. Cam Taylor-Britt obviously has star potential written all over him. He's kind of the face of, I think, what Nebraska wants to be, what Nebraska wants to have from its defensive players, definitely its defensive backs moving forward. A Scott Frost recruit who came in and has progressively gotten better and has played all over the secondary. So the guys like Javen Wright, like Miles Farmer, like Noah Pola-Gates, I don't know that they've yet to differentiate themselves. You put Quentin Newsome in that group. They've yet to differentiate themselves in this program as standing out because they've all been here for 1 year. But Cam Taylor-Britt's been here longer than that. He has separated himself at this point. I think he's a guy who can be an all Big Ten caliber player this year. And I think up front, much like what I said about Ty Robinson up front.
Mitch Sherman's with us from The Athletic. Hail Varsity Radio at Mitch Sherman on Twitter is where you follow Mitch. And I want to go back to Javen Wright, Buddha, and a guy that was going to be in that back four that they put some weight on, and he could be a spark for Nebraska in that middle level on the outside linebacker. And I remember his dad, and you covered his dad, Toby, how phenomenal he was. Just breaking heads at the safety spot, but maybe a little bit out of the past here to take a guy in the secondary and throw him on the outside. It could work, and it sounds like from an athleticism, Wright's got the tools, but he's also able to carry some weight on a frame, and that's kind of the old 4-3 look, isn't it, where you take guys from the back end and move them to the outside to get after the quarterback.
Yeah, while we're talking about Toby and Javen, the legacy of Nebraska defensive backs from the mid-'90s coming full circle to play for Scott Frost and Travis Fisher. Don't forget about Baron Miles and his son now coming into the program as a walk-on this year, the guy who's been through some injuries and is overlooked. And Baron and Toby played together, have a history together, and it's pretty cool, another storyline to be able to see their sons play. I wouldn't expect the same things from Baron Miles Jr. as I would from Javen Wright this year, because Javen has been in the program for a year, now been through something of a position switch. I don't think the door is completely closed on him ever going back to the secondary. They're kind of like what Nebraska did with JoJo Domann. They've moved him because they want more athleticism at that outside backer spot. And it's interesting in the way that the outside linebacker spot is evolving. For Eric Shenander and Mike Dawson, the outside linebackers coach, and that they're recruiting guys like Blaise Gunnerson, the outside linebacker recruit from Iowa, who is in this true freshman class, who are bigger and are traditional, almost like 4-3 defensive end pass rusher type guys. I think eventually in this defense, the players who lead Nebraska in sacks are going to come from the outside linebacker spot. Are going to be guys like Blaise Gunnerson, who are big and can get around offensive tackles and get to the quarterback. And then there's that other type of outside linebacker like JoJo Domann, who are just disruptive and can do a lot of different things and can cover well from that position. And Javen Wright fits that mold.
Couple more minutes. Mitch Sherman's with us. Hail Varsity Radio. You read Mitch with The Athletic at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. Topic of the discussion last night with the Chenander interview was special teams, and you hear it a lot about Nebraska and where their depth is at. We've touched on it with being able to hold up in the physicality in Big Ten play, but when it comes to bodies and guys that are pushing for playing time, a way to make that impressions on special teams. with Nebraska special teams being as up and down as it was last year in different phases, going into this year, do you think they'll have more of a pool to pick from, Mitch, to improve that special teams consistency?
Yeah, up and down is a kind way to describe
I was just
special
pausing
teams.
with that, and I said we'll say up and down, Mitch.
Yeah, they definitely have more to choose from. And, when we talk about all of these guys, we've gone through a number of names here when you go into young players on defense, but it doesn't just have to be the backups. I think you'll see starters out there on special teams. That's what Nebraska has to do. It has to prioritize special teams. I think Jonathan Rutledge is going to bring that focus to Nebraska as the senior special teams coordinator, coming from the SEC, where he's worked at a couple of different spots. And you know how important it is in that league when every mistake is minimized and you're looking for any possible edge that you can get. That's where Nebraska's at in the Big Ten with its growth in this league and in this division. It has to find every little way that it can to eliminate the way that it trails its opponents in terms of scheme and talent and experience, and find edges. And special teams needs to be a strength for Nebraska as it moves forward and not a weakness. It can't have situations like a year ago where the kicking game was a mess and where it allowed kickoff returns for touchdowns in huge games at home against Iowa and Wisconsin right after Nebraska had grabbed momentum in those late season games. It's got to be the opposite. It's got to be Nebraska doing that with its return game, blocking punts, making big field goals, pinning opponents. So what they've done this offseason with Rutledge, bringing him in, and the results that he's already produced in getting an Australian punter and Daniel Cerny and a grad transfer kicker from LSU and Connor Culp, it's promising. It's off to a promising start. And the next step, of course, is getting those guys on the field and then developing a lot of depth and skill and athleticism on those return and coverage units.
Mitch, if you're a Nebraska fan and we talk defense and we know about the yards per carry and getting after the quarterback, that's 1 and 1A. But from a size and athleticism standpoint, do you feel like Nebraska is or could be more athletic but also just bigger in that front seven to dictate versus maybe absorb?
Yeah, you put a guy like Ty Robinson in wherever he plays, and you're going to get bigger. He's a large human, and there are others. Keem Green, not a projected starter on this group, and that says something right there when you look at how big he is. He's not as big as he was a year ago, but he's in much better shape and gives you more of a physical presence than he would have last year coming in late out of junior college. For sure, from looking at the young guys, they are getting bigger. We talked about how Nebraska wants to be bigger and longer at that outside linebacker spot and rush the passer from that spot. I think Colin Miller and Will Honas as the inside guys this year, they definitely give you some size that will be beneficial. So, yeah, across the board in that front seven, they're bigger. And there are some areas where they've got to grow and they've got to improve on last year. They've got to find a way to replace three seniors who did a lot of things that didn't show up in the stats a year ago in Carlos Davis, Khalil Davis, and Darian Daniels. But they have more depth, arguably, than a year ago. And if they develop it, I would say if they develop that depth, then they definitely have it. There are more bodies there. There's more potential. There's more ability for Nebraska to be a team all through the front seven that goes to, and even in some spots, three guys deep.
Mitch, about 15 seconds. What do you got coming up on The Athletic?
Max Olson and I, one of our national college writers who lives here in Lincoln, are teaming up on a story this week to talk about all the different ramifications of what may come of football season this year and how it affects not just Lincoln but college towns across the country, like Lincoln, Nebraska. Had some interesting conversations with all kinds of people all over the city. So look for that into this week or soon thereafter.
Mitch Sherman, The Athletic, and follow him on Twitter at Mitch Sherman. Mitch, take care and thanks.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
And we're back
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio lesson?
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Big thanks to Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Bill Bender's coming up. We welcome in the newest commit for Nebraska football, Malik Williams, with us. cornerback out of Buford, Georgia. Malik, thanks for a few minutes. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, man. Thanks for the time. And take us through your recruiting process, Malik, and what was it about Nebraska that ended up standing out for you?
Nebraska really stood out to me because of the tradition they have there and how they take care of their players and always love of them. Miles Farmer taught me a lot about him. We talk almost every day. He was telling me how the coaches always look out for their players, not always about the coaches, it's about the players as well, and I like that about him a lot.
Malik Williams with us on Hail Varsity Radio. Take us back for my listeners, just your connection with Miles Farmer and how close you two are. I know there's a teammate of yours and Gabe Irvin also that committed to Nebraska, so there's a lot of ties to Nebraska for you. But back to Miles, and how has he communicated his experience, and how did that influence you?
I've known Miles for a minute. We trained with our Dare together. I would say Miles really influenced me to go to Nebraska because he would tell me a lot about him, and I really liked what he was telling me, and I liked what I heard, and that's really it for that part.
Have you had a chance to visit Lincoln at all, just on your own, or is it all kind of just all right from folks that you trust that have been there, or just the amount of communication that you've had from the coaches? What's your process been like, at least to get a glimpse of Lincoln, Nebraska?
I actually been taking virtual visits, and the coach has been calling me a lot. So I think that's a big thing about it.
So real quick, what's a virtual visit like for you? What was shown? How did it keep your interest? What wowed you about it?
Well, they didn't actually show me, but I was paying close details on the wall, and I saw Coach Frost on there, and I was shocked that I didn't know Coach Frost actually played quarterback for Nebraska, and now he's coaching there. So that really shows a lot to me.
How'd the picture look?
I think it was a picture of him. Oh my God, I forgot. I just remember seeing it, but I forgot how it actually looked.
Okay.
Well, I mean, knowing it's Scott Frost, he must have looked good. But Malik, I know you're a multi-sport athlete. You participate in track and field in the spring for your high school down in Georgia. And I know your season got canceled, but you're a pretty good long jumper. First off, tell us a little bit about your long jumping, and then also, how have you been staying busy and staying active, keeping yourself in shape during this whole pandemic?
Well, in my long jump, I beat my school record. I jumped 23.4, I believe. And I've been keeping in shape. I've been going to Atlanta. It's called I Dare You. It's a training program. And I've been doing that every weekend mostly. And that's what's really been keeping me in shape.
With that training program, how vital's that been for you? What's your workout regimen like from a weight standpoint and just agility? I mean, the whole ball of wax, so to speak, Malik. How does it get you ready to play?
It really just helps me with my speed and my lateral quickness, getting out my back pedal and stuff, and just paying attention to close detail.
Malik Williams with us, newest commit for Nebraska 2021, part of the secondary. So what was Coach Frost's reaction? Were they expecting you to announce?
Yeah, they were expecting me. I actually got off the phone with Coach Frost and Coach Fisher yesterday, and I told them I wanted to commit to Nebraska. And Coach Fisher and Coach Frost were very, very excited for me, and they told me that can't wait to get me in that red jersey.
Malik, when you are in that red jersey, what traits do you think you're going to be bringing to this Husker football team? Where do you see the strengths in your own game?
My strength is I'm fast, I'm quick on my feet, and I got good eyes when it comes to, zones and stuff.
Malik, on the other side of things, what areas of your game do you think you need to improve before you finally step foot in Lincoln?
I really need to improve on my reads. I'm not too strong with it, but it's going to have to work. I'm going to have to work harder at it and just keep grinding for it.
You know, Malik, a thought. There's a number of kids in the SEC and the ACC footprint that are part of Nebraska football now. That's not always new, but it's been kind of revived with Coach Frost here at Nebraska. And what's that say to you about kids from not only Georgia but from Florida, from the SEC and the ACC footprint that are making their way up to Big Ten country? What's that say to you?
That says Big Ten has a lot of talent. You know, they're bringing in a lot of people, and yeah, that's really it.
Is that something that growing up, did you think much about Big Ten football, or did you just play? Did you really have any thoughts?
Growing up, I was a UGA fan, so I think that was all about me then, but stuff changed, so that's really it.
Last thought here as Malik Williams with us on Hail Varsity Radio. What kind of communication and how easy is it, I guess, to talk to a guy like Coach Fisher and Coach Beckton? I know they do a great job of recruiting the state of Georgia, but it sounds like they've been able to really connect with kids, and you're no different. How is the pitch from Coach Fisher, and how is the communication through this process?
The communication with Coach Fisher and Coach Beckton is pretty good. We got a bond, a very great bond. We talk like literally every day. Like I got off the phone with Coach Fisher, like I think it was like 25 minutes ago, and he was he was excited that I was committed to Nebraska, and Coach Beckton was as well.
What do you like most at corner? Do you like playing press? Do you like playing off? I mean, what do you enjoy about the position?
I really love playing press man.
Why?
Like my strength.
Okay. You like playing press man, and from a tackling standpoint, I was watching a little bit of your film. In high school, I mean, what do your coaches do to keep you guys kind of on point tackling-wise? I know you practice it, but is it emphasized quite a bit? Do you feel like you have quite a bit of opportunity to get better each day at tackling in your program?
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's always room for improvement, but I think I'm a pretty good tackler as it is right now, but once I work at it a little more, I think I'll be the best at it.
That is it. Malik Williams with us on Hail Varsity Radio. Malik, thanks for your time. Congratulations on your commitment.
Thank you.
All right, that's Malik Williams with us on Hail Varsity Radio. Another commit for Nebraska out of the SEC footprint, Buford, Georgia. Teammates with the running back Gabe Ervin and close friend of Miles Farmer. So Coach Beckton and Coach Travis Fisher doing their thing. A nice another commitment for Nebraska, and really good-sized kid again in that secondary. We'll wind down hour one with Hail Varsity.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Good stuff from Malik Williams, new commit from Nebraska. We will get that posted up on ESPNLincoln.com. The on-demand section also on ESPN Lincoln's Twitter handle. That may be up already. Elijah Herbal's pretty quick at that. He is getting ready to go to Colorado, and I don't have his email information. Otherwise, I would hand it out and place your... I'm kidding. You're not a drug mule.
I mean, if the price is right.
No. Not letting you do that.
I don't think my dad would either. It's his vehicle we're taking. That'd be...
We want our jobs here on Monday.
I would. That's the main...
And you and lock up with that mustache, you'd be in trouble.
From who? Are you referring to the other inmates, or you're referring to...
they would see, oh, look, someone's trying to grow a stash, like Magnum P.I., and it wouldn't fly.
I mean, the police officers could respect it, though. They could see the mustache.
There'd be some guy going, yeah, like that in the back.
Just because of the mustache?
Yeah, they would pick on you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's more just because of who I am, but...
You'd walk in and you'd say, big gulps, huh, guys? I mean, you just...
Yeah. I'd walk in, I'd introduce myself, and they know, this is the guy. This is the guy
This is the guy we are going to rob and beat. Okay, real quick, don't drink and drive. 1 out of 3 fatal crashes involves an impaired driver. Driving drunk, buzzed, or high, never acceptable, and law enforcement working around the clock to stop with sobriety checkpoints and saturation patrols. As a driver, make that correct choice. A non-alcoholic drink or a pre-selected designated driver. Be smart. Start the conversation. Who's driving home? Brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Bill Bender's going to talk some college football with us. Could we get a Notre Dame Alabama matchup to start the season? We'll have more from Coach Chinander and his comments on the defense. Jacob Padilla is going to join us. Jacob's doing some fantastic work coaching AAU ball, and I'm anxious to get caught up with him on just with that in-state talent, how they have looked this summer, specifically Hunter Salas and his crew. Where could the recruiting winds be blowing for just an incredible 5-star talent? A lot of kids that were underclassmen, too, on that West Side team, and some really nice Lincoln talent, to be honest with you. I mean, Jacob's seeing it all. So that's kind of the next wave of juniors and seniors to be for the Metro and the Lincoln Prep scene for high school hoops. And we'll talk a little ball with Jacob Padilla as well. Some football. We'll get into that. More from Coach Chinander. And catch the Malik Williams interview, Nebraska commit, another defensive back. You know, I think at Georgia, and Amani Cross is a Georgia kid. I think maybe Dana Brinson was a Georgia kid, or for sure Louisiana. I'm double checking that. I'll fact check that in a moment. But a guy that I thought was really, really good for Nebraska and was really good for the Patriots was Alfonso Dennard. Dennard was a Georgia kid. Dennard was like a 3-star small school guy, and his cousin was Darquez Dennard. I mean, it was pronounced differently, but it was his cousin. He was part of that no-fly zone Michigan State secondary in 2013 and 2014. So you get some kids out of Georgia, man. I mean, you can do a lot in the secondary with them because of their athleticism, the level of high school ball they play down there, and good on Nebraska landing another kid out of the Peach State. Coming up, Bill Bender, Sporting News next with Hail Varsity.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmitz_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmitz.
Back with you, it's Hour 2 at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. College football time with the Sporting News is Bill Bender at Bill Bender. 92 is where you follow him on Twitter. You read him, sportingnews.com. So are we going to get a concert review later tonight on Twitter, Bill Bender?
Yeah, you know, the kids and wife and I, we all took this is what we have to do, is road trip, drive-in concert tonight, maybe some ice cream and all those kind of things. So it is what it is. I mean, here's the bummer, as you have with everything you do, is we get to the hotel that we're going to stay at a little early, and of course the swimming pool's closed. Mm-hmm. So this is, and you and I have talked about this a lot, where you just feel bad for the kids at that point. Like, our kids don't deserve that.
They don't, and I remember road tripping with the folks, and we'd always hit Kansas City, right? And it'd be, bring your swim trunks. Let's spend Thursday night at the pool. Let's go grab lunch at Crown Center, and then let's get to Kaufman early for batting practice, the Royals. So, and we'll see, if Don Mattingly or Dave Winfield or whoever would, Bo Jackson would go yard 15 times into the fountain. I mean, that was the setup, and now Yeah, I didn't ever get the, no, I'm sorry, the pool is not open. I never got that treatment, nor did you. And it's a new normal for a lot of kids this year.
Yeah, it is. But, I mean, we and I've seen your pictures, too. I mean, we cap our youth baseball season this weekend, and the tournament's gone on without a hitch so far, and we closed the regular season. It was awesome. And I had a parent say something interesting to me this weekend, and I thought about college football about that. He said, and this is knock on wood, he's like, you guys have kind of provided a blueprint on how to do this kind of stuff. We'll have over 100 kids, 100 parents out there on the 2 diamonds. You've got people sitting on the hill, face coverings, and, to our knowledge, and knock on wood, I mean, nobody has gotten sick, and we've all kind of done our thing and able to have these kids have some baseball. And it's been probably one of the more rewarding experiences for me, just seeing the smiles on their faces.
Yeah, it's been great, and our parents and coaches have done a fantastic job. We had our state tournament last weekend, and parents knocked it out. The kids were great. The coaches did what they needed to do, and everyone sanitized and was able to move on to the next game that followed us. Bill Bender's with us, Sporting News. Bill, I want to, before we get into some meat and potatoes college football, I know you're in Ohio, and you're an Ohio guy, and you're in that Midwest Big Ten region, further obviously east than Nebraska. What's the gauge, or what are you hearing about high school football in the state of Ohio and Michigan and in Pennsylvania, specifically Western Pennsylvania, those recruiting hotbeds for a lot of the Big Ten? How are things proceeding? Nebraska's NSAA said, look, fall sports are going to go on as planned. Nebraska had an all-star high school football game about 10 days ago, so far so good here. But in your region, your neck of the woods, how are things? How do you think things will play out here as we move closer to school?
Well, that's another thing on our son's baseball team. One of the coach's kids on his team is a really good friend and a pretty good second baseman. His dad's a high school coach, so we get all the info from him. And as far as we know, they're going to try to go on August 1st as planned and see where they go. And as you know, we live in this city in Ohio that's one of those hotbeds. It has 2 of the best high schools in the country. They're consistently ranked in the top 25, and one won a state championship last year, and the other has the number 1 recruit in the country, in Ohio State commit Jack Sawyer. So it's all systems go as of now, but I mean, we're all kind of bracing for, is there going to be another wave? I mean, because the numbers in Ohio are still pretty high. It is my hope, and I've kind of sensed this reading through stories right now. Yeah, there are cancellations and postponements, but I could ask you if you feel the same way. I feel like we're almost getting through this big spike and maybe heading toward the downturn if we keep it up over the next couple of weeks.
I think there is some optimism, Bill. That's the sense I get as well. You had the news from the Pac-12 and the Big Ten not long ago about just conference games only. You've had the ACC and the SEC and the Big 12 say we're just going to pump the brakes on making any declaration. And you've had some outspoken coaches, specifically Ed Orgeron, just plead with the vice president that we need college football. And you do need college football economically. Now, you can't put a price tag on a life, clearly. So I think folks are smartening up, and I think they're being more cautious, and I think they're being careful if they are going out, and they realize that, yeah, your health and safety is first and foremost, but if you want to go watch a college football game, you better take this thing seriously. And I think more and more folks are trying to do that, or at least they're being cautious. And that's a broad statement, and I know it sounds just kind of like lip service when you see numbers like that are happening in Florida and California coming out and saying we're moving everything to spring. I get it. Nebraska's in a whole different spot than a lot of places in the country, but I think Nebraska's going to try and do everything in their power to have football. I think a lot of the schools in the Big Ten will do the same. There will be some schools that may not have football, but I think you'll try and adapt and adjust. And I want to go to Notre Dame. Do you think we get a Notre Dame Miami? Do you think we get a Notre Dame, Alabama? Because there are some holes in Notre Dame's schedule. They'll have 6 ACC games, it sounds like. But what about those classic long-time rival games that Notre Dame's accustomed to playing?
You know, I've been telling people, and I'm kind of working on this, is like the perfect scenario for college football, the perfect world scenario. And tell me if I'm wrong on any of these, that we get the conference-only game for the most part, unless the SEC, they agree to play that one extra game. We get a 9-game season. We get, and how I would do it is if we get it in that first weekend in October, have Notre Dame and Alabama open that bad boy up on Friday night. That'd be awesome, wouldn't it, if we get somebody like that, and then go from there. You know, try to play 8 or 9, get the playoff in, get the conference championships in, and COVID testing works out, and it plays a minimal impact on the season. I think if you got those 5 things, that to me would be the perfect season in terms of college football, playing out, you know, all these possible scenarios that we did. That would, and then, you know, another one I'm seeing is, you know, if the group of 5 schools can't go, play in the spring.
Sure.
Now let them play in the spring. That'd be amazing too. You know, let them have a 5 or 6 game season if they can't play, and then we go from there. And people would watch that and let them play for their own natty. And I think that's kind of where we're at in terms of a perfect world scenario.
That could work, and if things get started and then a pause button has to be pushed, maybe you resume in spring. Spring works for a lot of the Big 12 and the ACC schools from a weather standpoint, clearly, but it's not awesome for most of the Big 10, depending on if you get the big token 70-degree February or March day in Nebraska. It'll be 20 the next day. I'll promise you that, Bill. So it isn't real feasible weather-wise compared to just a handful of the typical November games you get, and sometimes those aren't always as bad, but no, I'm anxious to see what can happen with Nebraska, and if the Big Ten ends up just tacking on that 10th game from the East, or the Big Ten does not stand in the way for schools to go fill out a schedule if things can't happen within conference.
Yeah, I think with the spring games, I mean, that's kind of I've covered spring games with a winter coat on in Big Ten country. I always tell people that. So, and I had to have a winter coat, gloves, or sock hat. I remember one in East Lansing was really cold that I went up to a couple of years ago, and there's been one in Michigan that was pretty cold. So that's what makes that a little more less appealing to me, not to mention that a lot of those guys might have their eyes on the NFL anyway, and that calendar's not going to be changed as well. So I just think the perfect way to do it is try to get that 8 or 9 game schedule in the fall, starting first week of October, and ramp it up, and we go. You know, we're getting towards the end of July here, obviously, and I think you need that 6-week period to go. So if we can get those things down, get a real fall camp in, and go from there, we'll have a chance.
Your gut says what about the SEC? Are they going to be the first to declare that we are playing football no matter what the numbers say? Do you think they'll be that brazen?
I think they're going to try to do a 9-game season as well. But what they're going to do that I hope and I think they're working on it. So I think the SEC can get 9 in, play 8 conference games, and then play one of the other ones. I mean, like I'm talking about those ACC-SEC rivalries that exist. You know, the Georgia Tech, the Louisville, Kentucky, Florida State. If they can work with the ACC to get that in, you know, the ACC and the SEC have a lot of conference scheduling similarities with the fact that they play 8 games anyway. So if they can get that rolling, I think that's a perfect world scenario for them. And then the Big 12, obviously, they play 9. You know, and it's just a question, can we get 9 or 10 games in? And I still think if you play 8 or 9, 9 to me is like, you can get that many regular season games in starting in October, and you can do it legitimately and safely. To me, that's a legit season.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that far off of what it's grown to be 12. And if you can get through a regular season, I don't know how expansive the bowl season will be. We have no clue what December or January looks like. But are you in favor of a one-time playoff expansion for 2020 because of how screwy this year's been? You up it to 6 or 8?
No, because I think you want to just get them in. And in this, we can still figure out who the 4 teams are.
Yeah.
I think it's going to lead to some open, and I think keeping it at 4 increases my interest a little bit because some teams may lose and some things may happen. It's like, to me, it's like you're basically, imagine a college football season that ends on Halloween, a regular one.
Sure.
And then how that can change from November Halloween to the December 7th when most conference championship games are played. But I'm cool with 4. I think we can figure out who the 4 best teams are. I think there'll be hopefully some wonkiness to the season, which college football, quite frankly, needs, and then we go from there.
Couple more minutes. Bill Bender is with us. The Sporting News at Bill Bender 92 is where you follow him on Twitter. Bill, baseball gets going here end of this week. And some thoughts from you as you look at the Reds and some other National League teams and even kind of scanning the American League. Any favorites, any dark horses as you look at this season? I know there's some guys that have opted out, but, man, you've condensed a season to 60. You don't have to be great for those dog days of August or into September. It's shrunk on you.
No, I think, the 60-game season is going to be fun. I think it's going to be every game matters type deal, and you'll get locked in. And as I wrote for us today, I mean, that magic number, if you want to win your division, if you go 38-22, get a chance to win your division. I think there could be some sub-500 teams getting the playoffs, depending on how it breaks. So, and I do think it's something college football can watch because the regionality of the schedule is pretty cool. And that's what we like about college football for the most part, that hyper-regionality in some places, especially Big Ten, SEC. And if it works out in baseball, I think that could work out in college football.
Where would you slam Toronto?
Yeah, that's a good question. They've got to find a hub. So, if you're doing it on the East, I mean, I don't know if it's possible to put them in New York or I don't know if you want to do that. But somewhere on the East Coast and get them in there. But that's another wrinkle, obviously, with what's going on in Toronto where that team, or you could let them play 60 road games, and if they win the pennant, it'd be one of the better stories in sports history.
I would say so. Yeah, absolutely. There's been some push with smiles on our face to get him to Warner Park just up the road in Omaha. Let him play where the Omaha Storm Chasers play, or just throw him at TD Ameritrade, home of the College World Series. Omaha'd be all great with that. I don't know how the site of Buffalo is. I know they're rabid for football, but I'm not sure could Buffalo handle Toronto and a Major League Baseball squad. I've never been to Buffalo.
I mean, they could, and I mean, yeah, that's a good point. You find one of those AAA international league sites and go from there with them and see if they could enjoy 2 months there. And see if it works out. But, yeah, I mean, that's just one of those other wrinkles, logistical hurdles to it. And they're getting on crunch time with that.
Bill, last thought, what are you working on? What's coming up on the Sporting News from you?
Well, I'm off today, but we squeezed you in, of course, and then tomorrow we'll get back to it with some more opening day content. I'll have a look at the chase if we'll actually get a 400 hitter in a 60-game season, which is another one of those wrinkles that I always like to chase, and then some more college football content on along the way as we kind of wait and see what those conference schedules look like.
Well, Bill, enjoy the concert tonight and enjoy family time. Thanks for a few minutes.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
The old drive up instead of drive in, but the drive-in concert, and Bill Bender's throwing on his darkest black T-shirt. He said it's an emu band. I said emu. It's like he's got a bird and sunglasses like the commercials. Emu or emo?
Emu.
Whatever, dude.
Emu, I think.
It's a underground band the guy's wife likes. Emo.
Oh, God, I thought you were talking about the animal still. Yeah, the
see, and I get those
emu.
two. Because you see it emo shows, you see emu bands, right? Right? No.
No.
A lot of spiked leather.
I'd like to see an emu.
That'd be okay.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time at Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Bill Bender, Mitch Sherman earlier in this show. Newest commit Malik Williams spent some time with us. We say hi to Jacob Padilla from HailVarsity.com and magazine. Jacob, have you put the whiteboard and whistle down? How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Dude, I got to hear about your weekend down in Kansas City with all that prep talent. Of course, Salas was down there, and the Omaha Adidas AAU squad was there, and St. Thomas, and kind of give listeners a little bit of a look-see as to the Metro and just the AAU scene in Nebraska and how it's been able to compete against some other national squads. What have you been able to see?
Yeah, so this weekend I went down to Kansas City to watch the OSA Crusaders program take part in what was called Camp United, and it was kind of a joint venture between KC Run GMC, OSA, and Howard Poly, which are three of the better AAU programs in the Midwest. And they all got together to have kind of just a round-robin little event where the teams played each other and coaches could watch on the stream. And kind of it was closed, only 2 games going on at once, so using different sides of the arena and just kind of spread out in the crowds and everything. So it was really kind of controlled environment with some really good talent and put on a good show for the college coaches to watch. And OSA went 3-1 overall because they also played a separate showcase game over in another tournament. So they had 4 games down there and played pretty well. And the first game ended up losing on a go-ahead 3-point play with 5 seconds left and didn't get a shot off. So other than that, they kind of took care of business the rest of the weekend, got some good wins, and some really highly talented teams and players, including a few guys that Nebraska is recruiting. I got to see some of those guys as well.
Kind of give us a look, see who are some of the kids Nebraska's in on, and to kind of go a little deeper here with Hunter Salas, I mean, the who's who of college basketball is after him. Is there any lean that you're aware of, or is it a 3-team race, or is Nebraska even on the radar? Kind of give us your thoughts on Hunter's recruitment. I know he's quiet, and then touch on, if you can, the kids Nebraska's been in on that were part of this showcase.
Yeah. So. Yeah, Hunter's, like you said, he's kind of quiet. He has not gotten to the point where he's really kind of cut things down yet at this point. I think the lack of ability to take visits has really delayed that process for him. I think it's going to be tough for him to really narrow things down without getting a chance to get out there and interact with the coaches and see the campuses and all that stuff. So at this point, I think the recruitment could go on for a while. Obviously, he's got his whole senior season. We don't know yet what's going to happen with the early signing period, if that's going to get pushed back or what's going on there. So I think he's kind of going to continue to let this process play out. But he has made sure to, in interviews he's done and just kind of what I've gathered, he's keeping Nebraska and Creighton in that mix. He's letting both kind of local programs continue to recruit him. Kind of continue to build those relationships. I think he is. He's got a lot of really great options outside the state. Obviously, North Carolina, Kansas, Gonzaga, schools like that. But I think he's letting Creighton and Nebraska continue to stay in it, and he is considering staying home. I think. You've got the kind of the hometown thing where his family and friends would be able to come watch him all the time, and both programs have recruited him for a while, and he's gotten to know both coaching staffs pretty well. So Nebraska, I think, and Creighton are going to stay in it. I don't know that either one feels like they've got a great shot, more so than some of the other programs that are recruiting him hard, but he's going to continue to let them pitch. Make their pitch and keep them in his mix as he kind of continues to go through this process. I don't know when he's going to cut it down, and I'm not sure that he does either. But so they'll continue to do their part. As far as some of the other guys, Trey Hallman is a 2022 point guard for Howard Poly. That I saw this play this weekend, and he's a really impressive prospect. He got great court vision. I got him with 9 assists and just 2 turnovers in the game, 12 points, knocked down a 3, had some tough finishes inside, showed some touch on a floater. So pretty quick, long, and he's a guy that Michigan State just offered the week before. So he's a kid that Nebraska's been on early. They offered him about a year ago now, and he's a point guard I know that they really like in that 2022 class. Then Grady Dick is a wing, 6'7" wing, playing for the Run GMC. He plays out for their 17s. I know some, but he was playing with the 16s this weekend to kind of give that team a chance to compete against the older squads a little bit more. And he's a guy that he's a top 40 prospect nationally, and I think it's going to be really hard to lure him away from Kansas. But he's a guy that Nebraska did offer early on, and he can really, really shoot the ball. It was fun seeing him go up against Tucker DeVries. Those guys are really getting after each other, and Hunter in that mix as well. And I think Dick ended up with 24 points against OSA, 6 threes, almost dunked on Tucker DeVries, but Tucker actually stepped in there and took the charge on it. So it was fun to watch some of these kids really go at it.
Jacob Medilla's with us, giving us a rundown of some of the AAU recruiting and what's been going on. Pretty big-time tournament down in Kansas City last weekend. Jacob was there. He saw it, and a lot of kids Nebraska is in on. And when I heard you say that Nebraska and Creighton are in it with Hunter Salas, I kind of looked at Elijah and was like, huh? I'm not knocking either school. I mean, Creighton's been fantastic, and I really think Coach Hoiberg and Coach Abdelmassih and his staff, I think they're going to be fine at Nebraska. It's just you're not used to that, even if it is a hometown kid. I mean, it's been years, right, since Nebraska's landed their top in-state talent to stay here. If someone's good enough to go down to Lawrence, or somebody's good enough to get a look by Gonzaga or Carolina, for the love of God, right? I mean, that you don't hear North Carolina and Nebraska kid hardly ever, and you've got a plethora of really talented kids that are on those radars. What kids you've talked to or kids you've observed, I guess, Jacob, you know, what kind of impact does Fred and Coach Hoiberg and Matt Abdelmassih, what's their rep like with some of these kids? Because Nebraska is being taken seriously now for the first time in a while with some national recruits.
Yeah, and I think it continues to be the whole pitch is about Hoiberg and his experience, where he's been, where he can get these kids. I think that's kind of what Matt Abdelmassih is selling hard there is, hey, this is Fred Hoiberg. He's a guy that's done everything in the NBA, from play to coach to be in the front office, and now he's had success at the college level as well. So this is a great guy to play for. He knows exactly how to get you to where you want to go. And Fred himself, I think he's a guy that just absolutely loves basketball and loves kind of the minutia of it. And you can see, I talked with Isaac Trout and about their when they did the virtual visit with him, and it was just all X's and O's, and Fred just sitting down with the film and showing Trout exactly how he would fit into what they want to do and how they would use them, and that kind of stuff. So I think that's kind of how it works, is like Fred's he's just an all about basketball guy, and Abdelmassih is kind of the guy that gets those relationships started and kind of bridges that gap between Hoiberg and the recruits that they really want to go after. And he's a guy that continues to show off what the program has. And so I think those two work really well together on the recruiting trail.
Jacob Medill is with us, HailVarsity.com and magazine. Great stuff, premium content. Subscribe to Hail Varsity now and get it. Great reporting from Jacob on the AAU scene down in Kansas City. Jacob, a thought with St. Thomas, and I know he had a nice weekend. Where's he at from a recruitment standpoint? Who are some teams on his radar and vice versa?
Yeah, he got a few kind of out of the blue, some high major offers there with Mississippi State and Virginia Tech and TCU. I don't know at this point necessarily where he is on their board. I don't know that how much he's hearing from them at this point, but you've also Valpo just recently offered, and I know some other schools are looking at him that I've been talking to, and I think schools are just trying to figure out where exactly, what level he belongs at this point, because he is a late bloomer. He's a kid that grew about 2-3 inches between the end of his sophomore summer and start of his junior season, and barely played as a sophomore, and is a junior this past year, like 15 a game for Millard North, and was a huge part of what they do. And so he's continued to grow. He's about 6'6", maybe a little bit more than that. He's kind of worked hard on his body to get in really good shape, continued to progress in that area. And I think now teams are just kind of following closely to see how he does against the upper-level athletes that you're going to play when you face off against teams like Run GMC and Howard Pulley. And he had a really good weekend. I think now it's going to be all about consistency for him and continuing to show this every weekend that, hey, this is what he really can do at this level. And if he is able to do that, I think we could see some more of those schools kind of really start to show more interest. But at this point, I think I call him a mid-major plus prospect. I think kind of the mid-majors are looking more seriously at him at this point, but he does have those high majors did show some interest there, so I think he's got a chance to kind of get to that level as well.
Jacob, I've got 30 seconds. You, me, Elijah, and Kinsey are in a three-point shooting contest. Could you hang with Kinsey?
I do not know. I'm about ready to go play some pickup tonight. Hopefully, I'll have a good day tonight, and maybe I'll be able to carry that over into this competition.
Well, get someone to film it, because at Jacob Padilla _ you posted video of Nebraska commit Tomianga just drilling 3 after 3 after 3.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, Jacob, what's the most you've knocked down consecutively?
Like 10, 12, something like that. Definitely not 37 or 40 or whatever.
47 out of 50.
Whatever he did.
I hit 3 in one game on NBA Jam.
There you go.
Elijah, what'd you hit?
I hit 4 in a row earlier this week.
Okay.
Well, I guess it would have been last week, like Thursday or Friday.
Jacob, keep up the awesome work. Thanks for jumping on, bud.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Got a great idea for you with a night out in the fresh air, in the sunshine, distance from one another. And I'm talking beer and wine. Are you interested? The 8th of August, the 29th of August. How about Taste of the Rail Yard? RailYard.com is where you log on and get signed up. Enjoy free samples from local breweries and wineries. Listen, there's amazing breweries and wineries in Nebraska. You know this, I know this, and they are coming to you in the Rail Yard. Log on, RailYard.com for Taste of the Rail Yard. August 8th, August 29th. In the Rail Yard, it's just $10. Get it locked in. Do it now with the Rail Yard and Taste of the Rail Yard. So what I got to tell you, too, is there's some music. Your chance to sip on samples of local breweries and wineries. And Lemon Fresh Day, August 8th. Shoot to Thrill, August 29th. And for more information, RailYard, TheRailYard.com.
Do we know any emu bands going to be there?
See, it's dude, I screw that up, and I try to just stay the hell in my lane on that. It's emo, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I played my share of emo bands at 90.3, the Mighty 90, KRNU, of course, which was great. KRNU had there's some stuff I still play that I played 20 years ago in college. It was wonderful. And some of it's kind of more mainstream now, like Nirvana and the Pixies. They're more mainstream now.
That was on 90.3 years ago?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that's where people first heard of Nirvana and Pearl Jam and REM and Big Head Todd the Monster. I mean, all these bands
Yeah, we do have to get that rejoin fixed because you're clearly not in your 30s anymore.
No, I'm not. But you clearly have worked on Spotify to get our show posted.
Ooh, going there.
And I mean, you're the producer. Job is to tweak the sound and imaging of the show. I can do it. Just kind of waiting for you. You've been doing this 2 years now?
Oh, no. I am like at a year.
You've got a year and a half.
No. Because, well, last summer, Colton and I was doing like...
You're filling in.
Like, I was doing what? Wednesdays and Saturdays, I think, last summer?
But that's...
I think I started up last May. I think was my official start day.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. Time flies.
When you're having fun.
And it feels like years in 2020. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
We're July going on January.
That's the problem is, like, the past 5 months, I've had all the time in the world to get this rejoin fixed or get this. Maybe on the trip
maybe
to
when
Denver
when you get back from vacation.
Maybe I'll do my research while I'm on vacation.
No. Whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to do. It's your, I'm quite happy pretending I'm still in my 30s. My liver is. Okay, let's dive into some more from Coach Chinander. Thank goodness. We'll get into some football here. So we have highlighted Coach Chinander's comments from last night on the network. He touched on the front three. He touched on the depth of the front three. And he hit on the fact that, Honus and Miller are nice at the inside, but there is depth at that interior spot at linebacker to push him. Reimers specifically, Henrich specifically, and some other guys, Keyshawn Green, guy that could do some work. So where are we at, if you're Nebraska football, looking at your outside linebackers? And you're like, whew. Speaking of, it feels like forever ago. Doesn't it feel like forever ago there was a guy named Randy Gregory coming off the edge for double-digit sacks in the Big Ten?
I mean, it almost was.
We're talking 6 years.
6, 7 years, yeah.
6, 7 years. It's been 2013, 2014. I mean, we're talking 20-sack season combined for those, his sophomore and junior year. You had Malik Collins in the middle. You had Vincent Valentine.
It's been, 5 years since them now?
Yeah.
It's been a while.
But you have not had, and I'll say this, I believe it was Khalil. The guy had 7.5 sacks, right? Was it Carlos or Khalil? Khalil had 7.5 sacks. That's nothing to sneeze at, period. And you want to go further back with someone raising hell on the interior. Look at the Sue Crick combination, right? Where Sue had 12.5 and Crick had 9.5 or 10. I think he had 48 in one game against Baylor, which was fine. But here is the outside linebacker spot. Here are some of the options. And can they get after a quarterback? Can that outside backer position find somebody to do that consistently?
That position, though, he's got some work cut out for him, and they've got some work cut out for themselves. Obviously, that's the biggest question mark. JoJo Domann can do some things on the outside. We use him in a lot of different places throughout the defense. Garrett Nelson's obviously coming back. You got a couple guys in Caleb Tanner and Javen Wright that have played some football for us but haven't been starters, so they have an opportunity to compete and make an impact for that starting position. We've kind of moved Damian Jackson over there, and he's got obviously a different skill set than a JoJo Domann or a Javen Wright type player, but he's got an opportunity to make some big plays for us at that position as well. And then obviously there's a couple junior college and freshmen, Blaze Gunnerson, Nico Cooper, and Jamari Butler will get in there. And we haven't even mentioned Jamin Graham yet. So there's a lot of good bodies in there. I'm excited to see what Coach Dawson will mold those guys into and who will kind of rise to the top as we get through camp.
Love those names. I love those names, and I like what maybe Nico Cooper can do. There's expectation. You come from JUCO, you come in at a higher level, and maybe you make an impact. I think Garrett Nelson clearly can make a jump. I think JoJo Domann is your hybrid, and you've seen flashes from him. And the clock is ticking on a guy that we were pretty excited about out of Georgia in Caleb Tanner. because he is a fantastic athlete. And he's got size and he has speed. And he's got that bend you want, but you gotta see it. And it's there for Caleb Tanner to do some work. He's quite capable. But Newsom's a kid, and then you know what? Blaise Gunnarson's a kid that we've heard his name for a long time in the recruiting discussions. He's been a part of the program. And these guys, rarely do you get a dude like Thibodeau out of Oregon that comes in and just kills it and lights it up. Or who's the dude from A&M that's with Cleveland? Myles Garrett. I mean, Myles Garrett, I think, started 2 years or saw lots of action as a true freshman and then as a sophomore and was gone by his sophomore year. So those are special instances in that. We'll wrap up a Tuesday show. Some more thoughts from Coach Chinander. Special teams will be nice. Yeah, I just said that. Why? You'll hear as to why it could be and it needs to be and it has to be better for Nebraska football. That's special teams and just really the full circle of what you will have on this defensive side of the football in 2020 for Nebraska. You are going to have options. You are going to have size. You are going to have some length. Our guys ready to go for 4 quarters in the Big Ten. We'll wind down to Tuesday next. Hail Varsity presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time on a Tuesday, Hail Varsity Radio. Mike Babcock tomorrow. Can't wait to chat with Babbers. Brad Edwards with us. Mike Schuhart, Wilderness Ridge Golf. Going to be out at Wilderness. Excited about that. The end of August. Get things kicked off on the deck. Little live Hail Varsity on the road. That'll be good. Elijah and his mustache are leaving for Colorado.
Yeah, I still haven't decided if I'm gonna trim it before I see the
you
family.
need to shave that. Because if you walk into a bar down in the Lodo area and you have that mustache but you have no ink, they will not let you in.
Well, I mean, that's okay.
You gonna buy a Rockies hat to fit in?
Should I? I mean,
I think you could just rock all your donkey gear and be okay.
I actually have a Denver Broncos mask I just got.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's in the car. I got to make sure I get it packed when I go out there tomorrow.
That's sweet. Now, does it have Traveler the horse on it, or is it just the old school Denver logo, or is it does it have Ed McCaffrey on it? What do we got?
It's like the new school logo, you know, the logo they've had since, 98 or whatever.
Right, the new. It's not the old donkey with the D.
Yeah, but it's like orange and blue, and it's got like little boxes on it with different logos. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, nice. I would go with some sort of Elway still pick and lithograph that thing on there.
I'm not sure I want to pay for like the custom image on a mask. You think it's worth it?
You'll be able to as you invade Denver.
Oh, you're right. I could go mask shopping.
You will be able to go mask shopping.
Ooh, that presents some good ideas, actually. There's a lot of different options.
And who's the offensive tackle that was at Ole Miss that had the bong mask? You'll be able to buy one of those in Denver, too.
Do you think I could get into businesses?
Laramie Tunsil?
Do you think like the businesses in town would let me in if I was wearing one of those? Because it's like...
Some.
It's like full, like, is it full face, right?
Yeah, it's like you're in the trenches in World War I, except you're not.
I mean, I think that'd be pretty cool.
Let's wrap up some audio. Do we have time?
Yeah, we do.
Please tell me we have time. This is Coach Chinander, cut 9. And what's he talking about? Help me out here.
This would be special teams.
Yes, special teams may be special in 2020.
I think that a lot of those guys last year that were redshirting should this year either be competing for a starting job or being a backup and a starter in all the special teams. So really all those linebackers and DBs that we've mentioned, if they're not the starter, they should be the starter on 4 special teams. Obviously, you got some offensive guys that'll compete for a starting job on special teams too. But my feeling is if you're not a starter, even if you are a starter on defense, you should be on a couple special teams. If you're the backup as a DB or a linebacker, you should be a core 4 player, period. And I think they've kind of got that attitude right now that they want to be out there, they want to help the team, and I think that they know that when you play really good on special teams, that kind of paves your way to get on the field more on defense, in my eyes, in their position coach's eyes, and in Coach Frost's eyes.
You know, real quick, and when it comes to does Nebraska play in 2020, you've got some good thoughts by Nebraska President Ted Carter. He wants to see fall sports, and he wants to see it done safely. He thinks Nebraska can do that. Not everyone sees it Nebraska's way, so they got to have somebody to play. Buckle up for a wild end to July, but that's encouraging. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 4. Elijah, have a good trip, brother.
I'll try my best.
We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.